meditations at the lotus feet of our dearest Lord Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Let me go ahead and share my screen first. Yeah. So, as Sister was mentioning, this is part 2 of the 2-part study circle on the 3 P's: purity, patience, and perseverance. So today I would like to ask everyone to be prepared to share. So we'll do a short recap, and then there'll be a short activity that we'll be doing. For that, you might need some notepad and a pen to note down your ideas, or electronic notepad would do just as well. And then there'll be a couple of questions in between, and then in the end, we'll open up for discussion as always. So let me go ahead and get started with the recap. So in the first session, we considered the 3 P's: purity, patience, and perseverance individually. We saw what they were, why it is important to develop these qualities, and how we can develop them. So I've tried to make it as short as possible and fit it all in one slide. So let me go over it now. So in addition to the common understanding that we all have about these 3 words, Swami's definition adds more value and more depth to it. Swami calls purity as the strength. Patience is, he equates it to the control of outer and inner organs. And perseverance is the essential precondition to the acquisition of spiritual knowledge. And why should we develop these qualities? Purity, basically, if we consume things that are not pure through all our senses, then it is bound to affect our health. So for good health, we need purity. With purity, one can change the destiny. We saw the example of how Savitri brought back her husband's life. And then without purity, sacred acts are valueless. Without purity, self-inquiry will be fruitless. And then to attain the principle of the self, purity is of utmost importance. Moving on to patience. So Swami says, haste makes waste causes worry, and so to avoid worry, we should not be in a hurry. And so patience is very important, and it will also help us avoid becoming spiritually weak. Perseverance, we need this if we want to know about the Atma. And in general, to achieve success in any endeavor, we need this perseverance. And we also need it to avoid losing faith in God and ourselves. And how do we go about achieving these qualities? So first, purity. The basic requirement for purity is love for God, which in turn comes from purity in food and endeavors, basically ahara and vihara. If we focus on these, this will generate purity in our mind, which will in turn generate the sacred love for God, which will in turn lead to the purity of the heart, leading us to divinity. And the heart here, it is chitta we are referring to. So chittasya shuddhaye karmaha and dharmaha. So both of these will lead to purity of the heart. And then we also saw that unity of thought, word, and deed leads to purity. We have heard of unity leading to purity and then divinity. And how do we keep the mind pure? Is again by good company, by studying the writings of saintly persons. And Gayatri Japa is another way to keep ourselves pure. So just a reminder that all of this is based on the material that was shared earlier, basically the Center Leaders Conference material. And so I'm just saying this again because in preparing for this study circle, I realized how interconnected it is with all the other concepts that we talk about in our Sai centers. And without using these terms of purity, patience, and perseverance, Swami almost invariably mentions about these in many of his discourses, right? So I think the material, they have probably searched for these terms and then put them all together. So that is what I want to mention here. So actually this week, we will be seeing how they are interconnected with all the other concepts. That is our goal in today's session. And so patience, so how do we achieve patience? It comes only by practice, and we should continuously assess ourselves. I mean, how is my level of patience? Am I improving? Am I going down? So Swami asks us to do a continuous assessment. And he says we should take time to inquire when thoughts arise. Do not act in haste. Take time to inquire, he says. And then devotion also leads to patience. He says a devotee doesn't complain. He believes in God totally, and whatever God does is good for him. So he doesn't carry his tale of woes and worries to all and sundry. And then forbearance is the next level of patience. We saw the term is kshama, and it specifically for that, Swami talks about 4 types of purity. If you remember, we also saw different types of purity, and for this forbearance, there's 4 things that he mentions. It is the purity of materials, mind, speech, and action. And then how do we develop perseverance? By avoiding doubt, have total faith in achieving our goal. Do not attribute the ups and downs of life to God, and either God should bless you or you should lose yourself in thinking of Him. Basically, do not be a part-time devotee. That is what he means here. And then whatever work you do, dedicate it to God. And then devote attention to the knowledge taught by the ancients. We have all these stellar examples for us to emulate. So this is a short recap of what we saw last month. So I would now like to move on to today's session. So we'll start with a short activity. It is picture captioning. Basically, I'll show you a series of 5 pictures. So here's where I would like you to use your notepad and pen or the electronic notepad. Basically, I'll show you 5 pictures and I would like you to caption them and see if you can somehow link them to the 3 Ps: purity, patience, and perseverance. So I'll start with an example. So here's a picture. This is the only picture I have of Swami, though. The others are just simple pictures. So in this picture, the thing that caught my attention was Swami's wearing sunglasses. So something about vision is what comes to my mind. And so I just captioned it as, watch what you watch, have pure vision. So I was able to connect it to purity. So something like this is what I would like you all to do. So first I will go over all the 5 pictures, and then I have one slide where I have all 5 together. And at that point, I will remain quiet for some time and allow you to caption them. And then we'll talk about it. So I hope you're all ready for this. So the first one here, we see 2 hands. It looks as if it is trying to protect the heart, or protecting or safeguarding love, or showing compassion, kindness. That is what it looks like. The next one, bunch of pills, some medicines. The next one, I just searched for guns and it showed me this. Looks like a gun store. They have all sorts of guns. So whatever comes to your mind. And this one is a picture of a bucket where water is being collected. So it looks like they're collecting rainwater. You can see the ground is wet and there are some droplets here. So it looks like they're trying to collect rainwater. So that is this picture. And this one is a part of a picture. It's a Michelangelo's painting. It's called, I think, Creation of Adam. So the hand on the right side is that of God, and he's trying to give the spark of life into man, that is Adam. So it is in some chapel in Vatican City. So basically, the creation aspect of God, that is what is represented in this picture. So with that, the next slide, it has all the 5 pictures that we saw. So I'm going to start my timer. I'm going to be quiet for 2 minutes. I hope you will all participate in this. Please pull out your notepads and then try to caption these, and then we'll go around. I mean, there is no right or wrong answer. If you link it, if you're able to link it to the 3 Ps, well and good. If not, anything spiritual is good enough. So with that, let me start my timer. All right, I think 2 minutes are up. So, I can call out names that I see here, or you can unmute and say, I mean, if you have done just a few, not all 5, that is good also. There's, like I said, there's no right or wrong. So, who would like to go first?
Let me take the first one.
Sure, go ahead, please.
The first one is love and action, so purity.
Okay. I mean, you can say whatever you have done.
Yeah, love and action, which is purity.
Okay, okay. Anyone else?
Fourth one also indicates purity, because it's a pure water that's been collected, rainwater. So I think it has purity.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else?
Sairam, Ramya,
Sairam.
So I linked the bucket collecting raindrops to patience because the raindrops are collected drop by drop to fill the entire bucket. So that I connected that to patience. Then the painting, I connected that like God is reaching out to man always. So that's perseverance. So God always tries to reach out to us and never gives up on us. And the first one, the heart, again, I connected that to purity. It's a pure heart and you're trying to protect it. And 2 and 3, I couldn't make out what it is. So that's my take, Sairam.
Thank you, Sairam. Someone
Yeah,
else? Yeah.
the first one is purity. The fifth one, as it says, patience, or I will say perseverance, because it's like a friendship that needs to be perceived between God or between God and humans, or between two humans. For two, I would connect it with patience because it looks like a number of pills there for a long time treatment. So you need to be patient to take so many tablets over a period of long time. That's what
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to share?
Number 2, I thought of patience and perseverance. It's a chaotic accumulation of various pills. So I think in order to make proper use of it, I think one should not only have patience to separate them into, similar tablets, and then I know for that you need to have a lot of perseverance. I think some knowledge and perseverance in order to separate them. So they're all useful, but they're not useful in this particular assembly.
Okay.
The hardest one is your image 3, I think.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that would like to share? All right, hearing none. So I'm glad to hear all of your answers. So I just picked these pictures based on the next thing that I'm going to talk about. That is, why should we develop the 3 Ps, right? So these are the points I gathered, and I just thought of finding a picture for each of these. These are Swami's take on those pictures. Let's put it that way. So he says, bear in mind the 3 Ps, purity, patience, and perseverance. With these 3, you are bound to acquire good health and bliss. So for this good health, I thought of picking the tablets. I mean, if you want to avoid these tablets, you should start with purity, I think. So the example of Swami, so Swami in his birthday discourse, I think in the 68th year and also on his 75th birthday, in his speech, he said, people are wondering, the students are wondering, the foreigners are wondering how Swami looks so young, even young and energetic, even at this age. It is because of these 3, purity, patience, and perseverance, he says. He doesn't take any tablets. He says even if he takes on any devotee's illness, the doctors prescribe him something, he just acts as if he eats it, but he throws away. That's what he says. And then he says right from his childhood, he never touched sweets. He just eats one dry chapati. So all these things, he says, how he is able to be so healthy. And then the bliss also, I mean, we've heard this several times, right? Swami just acts as if he is angry. He just takes on anger, but he's never really angry. It's all out of love. So he may hiss sometimes, he says. That is only because he says the people don't listen if I say it in a soft voice. So to make them understand, I have to sometimes hiss. That's what he says. So just to reflect this, I picked one of those, the pills thing. So let's move on to the next one. One has to develop 3 Ps to safeguard one's humanness. Let me minimize this. Sorry. So one has to develop 3 Ps to safeguard one's humanness: purity, patience, and perseverance. These are the 3 essential human values. When you have purity, you will attain Sathya and Dharma and experience bliss by practicing them. When you have patience, you will have righteous conduct and observe non-violence. When you have perseverance, you will attain all human values. So this is the one for the hand with the heart. So if we have to safeguard one's humanness basically, in one discourse, he equates it to love. So without love, how can you say that you are human? So that's why I kind of picked that picture. But it's essentially all the human values, and these 3 values are here he says, they are the essence of the 5 human values, right? Satya and Dharma comes from purity, patience, you have righteous conduct and non-violence, and for any and all, we need perseverance. So that was the hand and heart. And then this is the one, the guns. So he says, teach the children the 3 threes: purity, patience, and perseverance. Armed with these 3 qualities, they can protect the nation better than any army or atom bombs. So in this discourse, so I had to really, so it was part of just a small paragraph in that material, so I had to go through the discourse. That entire discourse is directed at teachers, and it is about some Balavikas conference. And he says, today, students are in a pathetic situation. Who is responsible for this? Is it the parents? Is it the teachers? Is it the administrators, who set up the syllabus and everything? Or is it the government? Who is responsible for this situation? And then he explains that everybody has a role to play, and he asks the teachers and everyone to basically practice these 3 things and teach the children these 3 things so that they can protect the nation better than any army or atom bombs. This is what caught my fancy, so I just put those guns in there. The next one, there are 3 Ps. The first P stands for purity, and the second for patience, and the third for perseverance. When these are present, one can acquire the grace of Sri Rama. This was amply demonstrated by Hanuman. So again, how was this demonstrated by Hanuman, right? So if you remember, I told you a lot of things required more study, and so that's why I moved them to this second half. And so for this also, I had to go back and look at what he's saying in each of those discourses. So, does anyone want to make an attempt? So we saw a lot of examples, right? Who stands for purity, exemplars for patience, perseverance, the earth, water, everything we saw last time. So does anyone want to say how Hanuman stands for purity, patience, and perseverance? Any thoughts?
The search for Sita in Lanka embodies all the 3 qualities: purity, patience, and perseverance. In fact, he sees the women in scantily clad women all over when he was actually flying across Sri Lanka. And initially he thought some of them could be Sita because they were looking beautiful. And that's what his image of Mother Sita was. And then he uses his knowledge to say that Mother Sita could not have yielded to any of these temptations, and he could not have been anywhere with Ravana's kith and kin. So, and then he even thinks that it's shameful even to look for anything else because I'm looking only for Sita, and these things should not even come to my vision. So he wants to assume that purity before he proceeds any further. And then he was patiently going on searching until he gets a target. And of course, he perseveres until even after reaching the Ashokavana, he was sitting there carefully watching Sita's action until such time she was about to commit suicide. That's when he even reveals himself. And he chooses the word so carefully. So I think all the three P's are, exemplified by his action in Sri Lanka.
Yes, very nice. Thank you, Sairam. Just to add on to that, yes, these were also part of that. Just to add on, so when Hanuman finally gets captured by the monkeys, I think with the Brahmastra, Indrajit tries to tie him up, right? At that point, all the monkeys question him. They've never seen a monkey. And so they are like, who are you? Where did you come from? Who sent you? And they're questioning him, all sorts of things. But Swami says he remained very patient. He's a very knowledgeable person. He's a Navavyakarana Nipuna and whatnot. But he's very patient and he just says in all humility that he's the servant of Brahma, right? So that kind of equanimity in the face of adversity comes from patience and a pure heart. That's what Swami says in this particular discourse. And yes, and of course in other discourses, all these things that you mentioned, they're also there. So very nice. Thank you.
One other point that Swami made in Ramayana's in conversation was, as you said, he's Navavyakarana Pandita. But when Vibhishana was coming for surrender to Rama to join hands, he was asking all the people whether Vibhishana can be taken in or not. Even though divine quality was to give Abhayahasta to everybody who comes as, surrendering himself. Hanuman did not open his mouth until he was asked. And when he was asked to give his opinion, he said, whatever your opinion is going to be my opinion. So that is how Navavyakarana Pandita actually said. So that is another example of the purity of heart, where he's got only nothing but love for God. And then he was patiently waiting until Rama asked. And he did not utter a single word beyond everything is God's will.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to the last one. So I think this one, yeah. So the picture with the bucket and water. So typically Swami talks about grace as being always there. It's like a rain, right? And we get as much grace as the container that we hold. The purity of our heart and how expansive our heart is, that much grace is what we get. So that is why I kind of put that picture there for grace. And if every person observes three things, he will be one with Swami. You will experience the divine in you. As the following three are in me, I can declare firmly about them. They are three P's: purity, patience, and perseverance. These three are in me and around me. Anyone with these three qualities will be unafraid wherever he may be. So this is finally, Swami is saying the person with these three things is himself, right? So that is why I had to put some impersonal image of God, and I tried to pick that picture with those two hands. So basically, if you look at these, I thought it's slowly moving from the individual to the divine, right? It starts with physical health, then the human qualities, and then the society, how we coach our children to practice these things. And then that X factor, the grace, with that, we become divine. So I thought that was very interesting in why we should be developing these three P's. And aptly, one of those discourses is named as, purity, patience, and perseverance, the steps to divinity. They name each discourse in the Sathya speaks and summer showers, right? So one of those discourses is named like that, the steps to divinity. And, this clearly reflects that. So, this is why we should be developing the three P's. Now let's move on. So how do we develop the three P's, right? Yes, we saw individually how to develop each of those qualities last time. This time, it's like a combination. So purity, patience, and perseverance are the requisites for accomplishing anything. Cultivate these three qualities. Students must embark on this exercise from now on and develop the habit of combining pleasure with sacrifice. It almost seems like he's saying, you do this, then you will be developing these three qualities. So now when you think of combining pleasure with sacrifice, this again, I wasn't sure what this meant. So, just to show you my thought process, right? So what do we consider as pleasure? Probably visiting a tourist attraction, attending a concert or a cultural program, watching a movie. Sacrifice is, sacrificing these pleasures and probably going on a pilgrimage, giving some charity, volunteering at a shelter could be considered sacrifice. So when he says combine these two, you should develop the habit of combining these and then you will develop these qualities. So what does it mean? I mean, when I go to some other city, should I go to the Sai Center there? What does it mean combining these two? So that is where I would like to hear your thoughts before going on to say, so in this particular discourse, he gives so many points and he says, this is how you combine pleasure with sacrifice. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And there's so many points there. I have it in the next slide, but before that, I would like your thoughts on, what do you mean by combining pleasure with sacrifice? Anyone?
Let me take the bait.
Sure.
Enjoyment is typically understood as any activity or any action that you take in order to satisfy your senses or what you consider you as you, which is actually senses. That is how most of the actions in life are planned, because they need to give you pleasure, whether it is temporary or permanent. Or we always think that the temporary pleasure giving activities are actually going to be giving us a permanent bliss. That's what the disappointment is. So when the actions are planned, even though for one's sensuous pleasure and enjoyment, if one turns it around to the society or for a higher goal, it may not be giving us immediate sensuous pleasure, but in the long run, you would start enjoying that once you make it a habit. Example that Swami gave was when the UK group, they gave a very small donation, but when they explained that what they saved for buying a very luxury car for some people, they just had foregone the thought of buying a luxury car, but instead that particular money they wanted to donate it for Sai activities in Prasanthi Nilayam. He was very pleased. He said, donation should be always like that. What you want to have an excessive pleasure or what you consider as an excessive enjoyment should be given to the society and you should start enjoying it. So that's what I think as a kind of sacrifice and enjoyment, because most of the things are planned for your own satisfaction and enjoyment. Instead, you look at the society.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for that answer.
And personally speaking, what I did in transformation to take that idea from Swami was that I donated my vacation to go to Prasanthi Nilayam to provide medical service. So, that became a kind of habit. And, that is really, it gives me a joy, which initially I thought I was sort of utilizing the vacation, which could have been for going somewhere else where, you could have a relaxation and some sensuous enjoyment. This was much more beneficial in the long run.
Sure. Yes, that is certainly one of Swami's answers too. Before we move on, would anyone like to add on to what has been said?
Yes, I think when we think of enjoyment, it's usually just about the self. And when we think of sacrifice, it's involving other people. And so when we move away from the ego and start to just be one with the need or how we can help others, it allows us to actually find that sacrifice it can become the greatest enjoyment in the way of living life. You're losing yourself or selfless in this sacrifice and perhaps at the same time serving others. So that was my thought.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other answer?
Sairam, I was thinking that, when you think about pleasures, you gave some nice examples here. You visit a tourist attraction, etc., etc. And just think of our mindset when we're on a pleasurable activity. You all feel relaxed and free and, and so on and so on and so on. But I was thinking at the individual level, where does how can you make this, as a sacrifice? He says, Swami says, students embark, you have patience. And what did Swami say exactly? That you have pleasure and sacrifice. So I was thinking, where you sacrifice the senses, in the sense that, if you're in a pleasurable trip or anything like that, make sure that the eyes see only what is good. That it doesn't run. If the vision is fine, that the thoughts are good, then the hearing is good, the taste is good. So what you're doing there is that, yes, there's pleasure, but you still have your senses under control, where it is for your benefit. Yes, you are on a trip but you're still connecting with divinity all the time. So there, because of this discipline, there's sacrifice there. So I was thinking like we could look in that direction. Sairam.
Sure.
Hi. So what I think is when you see like a Narayana Seva or something like where you go and then serve people, you are getting pleasure, and at the same time you are also sacrificing. But when you throw a party at home and you're kind of doing for your own enjoyment here, and when you do a service to people or something, you are also having pleasure. At the same time, it's like a kind of sacrifice you're doing. So that's what that's what I think about it.
Very nice. Well, certainly you all definitely have a better idea than what I had. But anyway, let's move on and see what Swami says. So I hope you're able to read this. I'll read it out. So these are all from this particular discourse. You may go and read it at leisure later. So when you perform actions without ego, and when you experience the world without attachment, no distinction remains between pleasure and renunciation. Our senses are instruments pointing outward. Similarly, the mind, intellect, memory, and ego are inner instruments. When the inner instrument is sacrificed, it does not matter if the external instruments contact worldly objects. This is exactly pleasure coupled with sacrifice, bhoga with tyaga. Without an eye on results, without selfish intent, all actions performed are desireless actions, nishkama karma. Nishkama karma is nothing but pleasure with sacrifice, bhoga with tyaga. Yes, some desires are necessary, but they must be within limits. Keep limits, focus on the welfare of all, and perform actions with a sense of duty. This is the union of renunciation and pleasure, tyaga and bhoga. Through the sacrifice of service to society, we are able to experience the pleasure of bliss. In this world, if we forget two issues, we succeed in bringing renunciation, tyaga and pleasure, bhoga together. First, the good we have done to others. Second, forget the harm others have done to you. To experience divinity through the five elements with renunciation, tyaga, is true pleasure, bhoga. The individual who seeks to offer themselves into the infinite ocean of grace must tread the path of love. This is renunciation coupled with pleasure. So these are the different points I found where he says, this is what it is, this is what it is. So yes, I think most of our answers were covered. This one was new, I mean, not covered in this discussion. If we forget these two issues, that means bringing Tyaga and Bhoga together. And then, see, slowly he's moving towards divinity, starting from the self to the society to divinity again. So to experience divinity through the five elements with renunciation is true pleasure. And then the individual who seeks to offer themselves into the infinite ocean of grace must tread the path of love. So I just wanted to share that. Let's move on to the next one. So this is another way to develop the three Ps. So in those days, the heart of the people was very sacred because they practiced three Ps, purity, patience, and perseverance. Therefore, instead of just teaching and propagating Satya and Dharma, you should put them into practice in your life. So basically, if we practice Satya and Dharma, then we would be practicing the three Ps. So I want you to connect how these three things are related to everything else, right? With Satya and Dharma, with service, love. So we are talking about the connection of this concept with everything else, basically. So in this particular discourse, Swami mainly talks about how to practice Dharma. So he starts off with, the four stages. There's the Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, right? He starts with that. Is that Dharma? And then is giving charity, Dharma. He proceeds like that. And finally he says, one should attain unity of thoughts, words, and deeds. This is the true Dharma of every human being. So the unity of thought, words, and deeds. This is our true Dharma. Again, this is at the individual level, and slowly it moves to, Dharma teaches cooperation. He talks about the stomach, so how it basically digests the food and sends off the energy to all the different limbs. So like that, we have to work for the welfare of everybody, he says, so cooperation. And then he talks about, so everywhere, in several discourses you might have heard, Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma. So Rama is the embodiment of Dharma. So from Rama's life, then he talks about never break your promise. As far as possible, perform only those actions that satisfy your conscience. This is the true way of living. This is based on Rama's life, he says. This is again with respect to society. And then the real meaning of Dharma is that which suffuses your heart with bliss. And I say this is divinity because we get bliss only by union with God, right? So he equates actually Dharma and Satya, they are God. So again, we see the movement from the individual to the society to divinity. So here so in this particular discourse, he mainly talks about Dharma. So I would like to ask you if you have any thoughts on how to practice Satya in our life. Any thoughts on the practice of truth? Yes, we have to speak the truth. So any other things that come to mind? Do I have to speak the truth no matter what?
And maybe
No,
first we
the
should.
answer to that is no. No matter what is not correct. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat is a very oft repeated statement by Bhagavan. So you need to speak the truth as long as the truth does not hurt somebody else. So that is very important. And second thing is truth. Most of the truth, which is alluded to in any conversational English, is relative truth. That is what you think, whether you are varnishing it to say something else. So I think as long as the thought is conveyed as a word, and one follows that with action to uphold it, that is what the relative truth is. And as long as that doesn't hurt anybody, then I think we are following the truth. But ultimate truth is, if any of these actions are in tune with what Bhagwan's words are, then I think that is upholding the absolute truth. Sairam.
Okay. Sairam. Someone else was going to speak?
Sairam, I was just thinking that, Swami says that, Swami is truth, God is truth. And what is this truth? And he always says that it's that which is unchanging, that which does not change with time. So how do you practice that truth? But Swami also says that, he's attributeless, but, he has the 5 human values, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, and Satya comes into it. So I think that if you live by practicing these human values, okay, that will be how you can practice truth, because they are all intertwined. Because if you think about love, if there's love, you naturally will speak the truth. You wouldn't hurt anybody. You will say what is right. Similarly, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, practicing peace. There must be truth in there, because if there is falsehood, there's never peace. So I say, so for me, for practicing the truth is just practicing all the other, the human values and all the subsets of it, and all the, that is a good way of living the truth. Living the truth is living the human values. And Swami, and that those are divine. Swami said they are divine qualities, which means they are God himself. Sairam.
Anyone else?
Swami always says that love is God, and when you do any action with love, it is truth. Unconditional love. When you do it, any action, that is when you speak with love to people, that becomes the truth, the Sathya. And when you perform actions with love, that becomes dharma. Satya, dharma, and then when you do these things, you get peace, shanti. That's what I.
Okay. Sairam. All right. So let's move on. So, for open discussion, I have the same questions as last time. So you can share your thoughts in general on any of the 3 Ps or a combination of them, whatever, any challenges you face in practice, any tips, any takeaways. Do you have any role models for any of the 3 Ps? You can narrate incidents from the scriptures, life of Swami, famous personages, or maybe someone whose example we should not follow. And can you think of any quote or saying? Any other thoughts or comments that we have not covered so far? And so there is another that I added for specifically for this session. That is a question by Swami himself. So he says, each one must question himself or herself whether he or she has these virtues. It is not enough if you proclaim that you are pure. Let others say it. So he adds that there. So I was thinking that was interesting also. So any thoughts? Just a quick time check. 6:53. Okay. So any thoughts? Or we can even talk about. So the life application, last time we said, can you identify any spiritual activity that you always wanted to do but never got around to doing, or some spiritual activity that you started but did not finish? So were you able to take that next step? Would anyone like to share that? Just open discussion at this time.
I just want to share since it's a practical tips, a couple of things that I wanted to share. One is how to have purity of thought and feelings. One of the things that I initially had as a kind of a proxy to follow that was that Swami is watching me all the time. So it's a kind of a auto-suggestion. So, having had interaction, so I always felt, okay, he's watching and therefore, this is how it should be. So that initially was a very good way by which I could modify my thoughts and thereby the words and action. So then it becomes a kind of habit later on. So that's number one. The second is, even by that, you slip up sometimes and you make a mistake. Sometimes it's not very loving in your word or action, or you may think it's enough love, but the recipient doesn't think it is enough love. So in that case, what to do is, I think Swami gave the answer one time that you could repent and you can make a vow that you would not repeat at least a similar action again. So that is a kind of a consolation for me that, of course, we can still make a mistake by our limitations. And if that happens, it's not a complete failure, but you can always pick yourself up and keep moving. So,
thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so there is a Chinnakatha that Swami has written on this purity, patience, and perseverance. But I thought, with the time that we have, I think we'll just watch a short video where Swami talks. So he doesn't use these 3 words, right? But it is about how to get the grace of God. And if you listen to, we'll listen to it's just a 2 or 3 minute thing. And it basically says, if you have this purity, patience, and perseverance, then you get the grace of God. So let's watch that and then we'll end today's session, I think. Unless someone wants to share anything. If not, we'll do that. So, hearing none, so I'm just going to share that.
You should study when you are supposed to. You should be steady when you have to be. When you are supposed to be steady, you start studying. When you are supposed to study, you will be steady. You should be steady very clearly. Therefore, you should study for steady. You should be steady. The body or the mind should never waver this side or that side. Then only what Swami says, the study will reach you straight away. If you are not steady, the Swami's speech also will not come to you. It will be wasted. Here is a vessel. You have to pour down the oil from the vessel on the top. Your heart is the receiver, the vessel. Swami's divine love is the vessel out of which you have to receive. Though Swami is pouring very nicely, as the vessel at the bottom, it goes on tilting. How do you expect to receive it? When the vessel at the bottom is also steady, there will be continuous one single flow and it will reach. Therefore, the receiving vessel should be steady and very clear. Even if the Swami pours down, if the vessel at the bottom just moves, it's all good. Not only that, every day Swami is teaching is something like downpour of heavy rain. But we have reversed the containers of our heart. In spite of all the heavy rain, do you expect a single drop to get into it? No. You have to turn it upward. At least it will be able to collect few drops. You are not keeping a vessel of your heart positively upward to collect that. You just reverse it, turn it upside down. That is called concentration. If there is no concentration, the drops cannot be collected.
So that was a nice example of like how we talked about collecting the rainwater. So let me move on to the other. Okay, we're back here. So to close, I would like to read out this particular quote. Because this is Sadhana Hour, I thought this might be an apt one to end with. So the one with noble qualities of purity, patience, and perseverance is verily God. Have the determination to uphold good and remain peaceful in the face of adversity. Don't aspire for name and fame. Keep your heart sacred. Have a strong determination to do good. This is the sadhana you are supposed to do. So with that, I think we can close today's session. Thank you everyone for participating and sharing your thoughts. And it's been a pleasure to host this session. And I'm grateful to Swami for the opportunity. Thank you. Jai Sairam.